Hey there, I'm Brittany,
Maria.
and welcome to the Be More podcast.
Hi, everyone. Um, I don't know what we're talking about this week.
There are so many things going on and so many things not going on. I feel like I've had a week where there's been so much going on in my life personally that I haven't been able to like even pay attention to what's going on in the world around me. And I feel like that
Hmm.
happens every so often.
Yeah, that's
Um,
valid.
but one of the funny things that came across my radar.
Uh-huh.
And I hope that we're going to talk about the world of like being famous. Like that's what we're going to talk
Oh,
about today.
okay.
So while I was in the car, I was listening to the radio in the morning because I like to listen to the talk shows.
Mhm.
And there, I wonder if you have you heard about all of this, the debacle of like Ray J coming out and telling all of the truths and showing all the
Oh, with
paperwork about his
the
sexting with
Kardashians?
Kim Kardashian.
I'm very vaguely, very vaguely. Yeah.
So this is what I listened to for two of my mornings because I was just like this. It's just comical to the extent that part of me is mad that I'm saying this right now because I hate talking about them at all. But I think this is kind of funny because they're like denying and their mom is denying like ever having anything to do with it and all of this stuff. And like there's literally paperwork and like documentation in the process of setting it up that like they all signed. Like and Ray J's just been so pissed about the fact that like he looks like the bad guy for like leaking it and all the other accusations that have been thrown on him when it was like a completely
Stage
devised
thing.
plan.
Was it a
Yeah.
stage thing?
More on
Was
the
it
Kardashian side than on his side.
right? And I'm not surprised. I didn't like dive into it. Like, I wonder why he waited so long. Was there like a NDA or something?
I'm sure there was some stuff, but I feel like he just hit the point where he was like, I'm so tired of this. It's so annoying that you keep
Mm-hmm.
saying like acting like you're so innocent and you didn't have anything to do with it and like you guys literally planned the whole thing. Um but
I'm
yeah,
not
over the
surprised.
last week he's been and I just literally searched in Google real quick to see he's been sharing all the paperwork about all of the money they've made, everything that they sent out, like the reality of the whole situation. I want everyone to really note this that Kim Kardashian got her start and was able to become the wealthy person she is today partially because of this.
Yeah, and you can Google
Like it
whatever
was
this is,
her
quote
it
unquote.
was what built her traction and being able to have any financial standing to begin with and have any say on anything, whether it was the fact that she made probably
Mhm.
close to $1 million off of doing this, or the fact that like it's what started people talking
Ooh.
about her. And I just want this whenever people I feel like it's not so much anymore. I feel like no, I haven't heard a lot of younger generations be like, my dream is to be famous. But do you know how like big of a deal that was when we were kids? Like people used to
Yeah.
like convoluted thoughts about that all the time. And I hope that people realize how much bullshit it is to actually be famous when you could do something like this and be have nothing that sets you apart from any other person other than the fact that you exploited yourself for money, be what catapults you into the world of
Fame?
being famous or like infamy. Because I feel like I, and then also there was another story out about how like Khloe Kardashian like just had another kid, but she was like sending all these pictures of like her long ass nails. So like all these moms got on the internet and were saying how they were concerned for the safety of her baby because she wasn't taking care of it. Obviously, if she had nails that looked like that.
They're rich enough to have nannies. Like, what do you like? You
All
know,
of
like,
this is so dumb. I think that being a famous person and where we've allowed fame to get to in this country and how it's such the backbone of society and all of the influence that people have. It's like
well, it
two
begs the
days.
question. Well, it begs the question. I
I was
think we
listening to this.
touched about this before. Like, do we need celebrities, or like, are they like a good thing or a bad thing? Did we talk about this?
Yes, we did. But when we would have them nonetheless, right? We would always have them because human nature is disgusting. But because we'd always have people, we idolize people and we put people in positions of fame for the wrong reasons.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's those people, right?
And explain to me how And they can get so powerful in those positions that even when the truth and all of the bullshit and the exploitation becomes common knowledge, it doesn't change anything.
Because people, this is a somewhat similar example, like your parents are your parents, and if they do something bad, like, or like they do something really awful, and you're like, well, that's still my mom's dad, like that's still my role model. That's still like someone that I still look up to. Like, yeah, they screwed up like right now, but like they did so much good and whatever that affected my life. So I'll excuse this.
But why?
Did you just say like people like
you know what I mean? I don't expect you to have an answer.
I think that is why. People just like looking up to people, even if they like. I mean, with the Trump people, right? Like he's a celebrity.
I mean, that's exactly where my brain was during part of this too. But I just
the QAnon people. Literally.
What did you find when you were looking up that you brought up Green's name?
Yeah, Republican, I think Congresswoman, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, actually, like Pat Sajak was trending on Twitter, and he has a picture with her.
Oh, great.
So I mean, not that I have any opinion on Pat Sajak, but some people obviously do because of the whole thing. I have more of an opinion on Vanna White. I love Vanna White. But
I just
I don't know. People will still like the Kardashians. People still like Ray J. People still hate Ray J or whatever, and people will hate the Kardashians. So nothing's gonna sway people from this news.
No, nothing is gonna sway people. And I think a part of it was like we all kind of knew, and we're just like, whatever. But I still think it's annoying. I'm very happy that I don't have to function in a world that is directly influenced or impacted by the lives of these people.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter still is that there are areas of the world that are directly impacted. Ow, mother of God, I just punched the table. That are directly impacted. And aside from like the systems that function, but like those systems end up encouraging and influencing people. That sucks.
Do you know anything about like Kim Kardashian's like legal I don't say like legal education. I mean, but legal things that she's doing, like helping out people that are incarcerated that shouldn't be.
No, like great, cool.
Yeah, so like people will stand by that, and then won't listen to this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
It's on the grand scheme of things and how much she can do, though. You have to. I think that we don't look at everything for the full picture, and I think that from a business marketing, their whole side of their brand, they do exactly what they need to do, just enough that they need to do for them to not get shit for not doing it. But that doesn't mean that they're doing all that they could be doing, or that they even give two shits, or that they're even the ones who are doing it. It could have come from her PR team.
I mean, that's fine. What else would you want celebrities to do, though? That's just I'm playing devil's advocate.
I mean, here's the thing. Aside from them being a celebrity, I think that they have lives to live, they have business to run, and I totally understand that. But you can do that and be that successful and be that wealthy and not put yourself in the position to stand in the limelight. If you do actively choose to want to be somebody who's a celebrity, I don't think people realize the amount of responsibility they're taking on. I think they're doing it because they want the glory and they want the attention. But when you step into a position like that, you are an impact player. And I would expect, regardless of what area you're in, for you to use your influence to influence not only people, but the systems that are affecting those people. And I don't care if with our last presidential election, it's very clear that we as a society have blurred the lines between pop culture and politics. So if you're going to willingly step into a place where you want to be a leader, or you want to be acknowledged in some type of role relevant to pop culture, then you have to know that you're stepping into just more than that. And I want people who are celebrities who, especially, I feel like the more damage that you're doing to our society, the more you should have to step up and fucking do something. The more that you're propagating the fucking beauty industry and influencing the young minds of children and making up lies and being manipulative, the more you should have to do to right that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the balance is just off. And part of me is like, well, that's not their responsibility. But at the same time, it is very clear what is possible now and what's expected and where those lines blur with pop culture and politics. And if you're in that place, like, I don't think you should get a free pass. I think that you have a responsibility to uphold. You can be a millionaire and not be famous. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there are a bunch of people that are millionaires that aren't famous.
Right. Like, or
Yeah.
I mean, like, millionaires not even enough, right? Like, you can be billionaires and not be famous. Like, you
Yeah,
don't
there are some
have to put
billionaires.
yourself, you don't have to put yourself in,
Hollywood.
right? So, and I think there are a lot of famous people, specifically in like the acting world, the pop culture world, who do take on a lot of responsibility. And I'm not saying that everyone has to, but I feel like there should be some type of, I don't know, like guild of actors, and there should be some type of, you know, just because otherwise you need the world more than the world needs you to be able to get all of your accolades, to get all of your fame, to get all of that stuff. So you should be supporting that world so that it exists and is functioning to be able to do exactly that.
But there is no unionized thing. You know what I'm saying?
Like,
Like
there is
there
no requirement, right?
exactly, and that's where that is, and that's unfortunately where we
And
are.
then I'm sure there's no, again, it's blurred lines, so I can understand there's no standing in a courtroom to be able to say that all of this is required. But
Mhm.
if you really look at the structure of our society these days, culture and politics, there's no separation of church and state in that aspect.
I mean, there's never been a separation. I mean, Ronald Reagan was an actor when he was elected to governor, and
That's very true.
so it's not like this is a new thing. It's just
You're
now that
right.
like and like I mean, you can Google the Reagan administration to see what happened there. It's mimics almost what happened here.
Yeah.
Being looked across the world, like I know in the Philippines, like a bunch of actors are senators, and a bunch of entertainment people are part of politics, and like that's why the Philippines is the way that it is. Like it's not. This isn't
That's
uncommon.
disgusting. Your job description has absolutely, I just don't, your role and part of it, and it doesn't say, and it shouldn't even say anything about the field of being in entertainment. What it says
Mhm.
is everything about the world of politics, right? Because once you start to really break it down, people who are politicians, we always make jokes about like, oh, that's such a political response, right? Or, oh, you're being such a politician. Like, we know how convoluted and manipulative the political person, right, needs to be. And the same way that an actor needs to be able to put on a front or put on, that level of manipulation, but it's different. Like, you
Mhm.
call it for what it is when you see an actor in that position, right? You know they're being an actor and you want that from them. But the fact that so many actors and people who are trained to be able to be somebody else or portray something else different than what they might actually believe in, the fact that it's so easy for people who are trained in that world to bleed into and become a politician says that there's something wrong with the structure of the way that politics are happening.
It's really the voting. It's the people that are educated, or the people that,
Right.
yeah,
Are
that has
not
a lack of
educated.
education in legal and political matters. Like you can go up to someone in the street and ask about our citizens, and no one's gonna know. Well, not no one, but like you know, a good majority of people probably.
But why have we not come to, I mean, all the time the answer is money and power. Like, I know what the answers are, but how? I guess the better question is, how do we make it so that that doesn't happen? And maybe it's what you
it
just
just
said, educating
and
the people.
this also circles back to your statement. Like it's these celebrities and like
Right.
the media that we consume that like you know.
You want to know, I'm getting to the point. So I work with kids, right? I work with teenagers, I work with adults. I am getting to the point in my life where
Mm-hmm.
I just don't. I had a couple experiences this week with some teenagers who were I gave an inch and they took a mile and were extremely advantageous and like manipulative.
Oh yeah, they're all
And
like that now. They're
I'm
all like
getting
that.
and it's not surprising to me because look at the world that we live in. I've gotten to the point where I was never a person who dealt with bullshit or wanted to deal with bullshit, but it's so frustrating when you see so much of it around you and you see people who only function off of manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens, we like the next generation see this. So they copy it and they mimic it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just the is the world that we function within so broken and people are so insecure that the only way that they feel like they're going to get what they want is through lies and manipulate. It's like it when you look at
It's
it, if you zoom out, it's so
I,
sad.
I don't think it's lies. I think it's more people pleasing. But
Yeah.
like
Or
with the
saying just enough that what
yeah,
needs to be said, right? And not
like
being
or like
completely transparent.
not them being people pleasers, but having the people pleasers, which are the older generation, turn that dial up for them,
Yeah.
which is manipulation. But like it's not. I don't think it's a lie. I think it's like stretching the truth.
So let me ask you a question. Ready? Do you think that what would the world look like if that the ability and understanding to be able to utilize that as a skill set was something we didn't know or understand? What if we lived in a world where people always just said what needed to be said, like said whatever they had to say? There was no understanding of like, how do I manipulate this person to get what I want? How do I politicize what I'm going to say so that there's no one who gets mad at me? Like what would that world look like? What if maybe the first question is why? Why does that exist? Where did that come from?
Colonization.
No, I mean, okay, so say more. Like why?
like, like I feel like the people that came. I'm Filipino. Obviously, everyone knows this by episode. I don't know what we're on 103. Like
Over 100.
yeah, like I feel like the Spanish came and was like, y'all need to be colonized, and everyone was like, obviously we fought back, but then
Right.
at the end, like we were like, oh shit. I mean, I guess we're not civilized, so let's go into religion and like be Christians and Catholic or whatever. Um, and then just the white man just writing their words saying like we're the superior being
Hmm.
was where this all started.
Okay, so what are the alternate options to that scenario, right? So, and I'm not just using this with your example, but like
Okay.
say there's some type of potential conflict, right?
Mm-hmm.
One country wants dominance over another country.
Mm-hmm.
And in the example that you just gave, and correct me if I'm wrong, one country goes in and is like, you have to do this. The other country's rebuttal is like, we're not doing this. We're going to fight you for it. And
Mm-hmm.
then war breaks out, right?
I think that's just
People
natural.
die.
That is natural. That like
Okay.
within species, is war is natural.
And then, people die and like greater forces win because, money and power and all that fun stuff. And then there's a spread of word that would you say that that is where the manipulation starts?
Yeah, once one side wins and it's like we're
Okay.
better
Right. So now you
because
have to
X Y Z.
we're gonna manipulate you into believing what we believe. So
Right.
okay, let's look at another situation with that. So or we're gonna beat you into submission with fear, right?
Yeah,
So
it's just fear
now
based.
is it I don't want to say safe to say, but does it make sense to say that manipulation when you observe those situations happening enough times over and over and over again, which when you look at earlier moments of human existence, right? War was in abundance a lot more than it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So is it safe to say that somebody saw, every time we say that we have a conflict, we just create a war and like use force, 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 force. So somebody was like, you know what? Perfect example with colonization. Let's walk into this situation. And instead of being like, you need to change, we're going to manipulate them into believing that they need to change so that we can avoid war and like potentially like bleed in fear and bleed in all of these
That
things.
also happened. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was the evolution of the way that it works, right? And that's is that not where like current day politics was born. Is that not how like present day politics is born?
Yeah.
So
I mean, do you see all the media that we consume? Like, it's just like,
right.
oh, like anyone can get swayed either way now.
Right. And it was too, I'm sure I mean, I can only imagine, I'm sure that the argument behind all of that was that we're saving lives by not creating war, but why was no one ever,
but then it becomes a civil war between citizens
this
inside.
is very true. And then the other alternative too, and I'm thinking is like, well, why wasn't anybody just like, why don't we try to, the problem with all of this is that no one understands conflict resolution. That's like the problem with, even to this day in our politics, no one understands conflict resolution.
I also think it's people don't believe in other people when they say XYZ, that they're gonna do XYZ. They think that's bullshit. Yeah.
And I mean, I think based on at this point the track records that we're dealing with as countries, right? Like when Biden goes in to have a conversation, a third of what he says and what he presents of face value is actually him. 90% of everything else, I mean, I'm sorry, a third and 90% don't connect. But like 10% is probably what they're taking for him as for face value. But the other 90% of that is the track record of our country, right? So it's got to get, that sucks if you think about it, right?
Which is
like
also
the future presidents have a really, you are being dealt a really shitty hand.
Well, which is also why when Biden got elected, I was like, here's to his 4 years of an apology tour, because that's exactly what he's doing.
Right. And that is so annoying when you think about it. People, okay, wait, let's have a moment right now because I'm realizing this myself.
Yeah, go ahead.
We put so much on the people who come into office in any capacity.
Mm-hmm.
The truth of the matter is, so much of the time, especially in this case, probably more than previous cases, that person is spending more time cleaning up the mess that was made by the previous person than they are actually being able to do anything and moving forward. And that's especially the case probably more often than not when you're dealing with people that are coming from different parties. They spend more time undoing what the other person did than undoing anything to progress our government forward.
Correct. No, that's exactly what, we'll just take the presidency as an example. Like that's exactly what happens when it switches parties.
And this is why, and I think that as citizens, as a society, like we have the right to be frustrated by it, but this is exactly where all the manipulation starts to come in, right? We have to manipulate each side into getting what we want, and we have to, in a perfect world, there is no reason that grown adults can't sit down and have a conversation. And even if you're going to lose, that like compromise exists for a reason. Like give a little, take a little. No one, we've had this conversation before. I know that no one is going to be able to conquer the world because it's not possible. But the mentality and the greed for that still exists. So my question is, what do we all need lobotomies? So that is that like a natural human instinct to like, no, it's an ego. It's ego. Yeah, I guess we all do need lobotomies. It's the only way that we're going to be able to exist in peace.
It's ego, and also I feel like it's just generational trauma and generational like differences. So I literally just opened it. I'm on Twitter. I'm just scrolling through like the highlighted like trends or whatever, trending topics or whatever. And there's one trending topic saying Americans think that the government is too old at that, and that most Americans want to see age caps in Congress, which I think is also a big reason why we have this in America. This,
but
like,
it's not
bipartisanship.
It's one of those things. I hate that we're using ageism in this situation because it's not the age that has anything to do with it. It's the mindset that comes across it. And we're generalizing the fact that because they're old, you know what I mean? And it's not to say that it's wrong, but it's too easy to just be like, it's because they're old. It's not the fact that they're old. There are people who are our age, Maria, who believe in these things and have the same thoughts because they were passed on.
A bunch of people. Yeah,
it's come on from previous generations, but they're not old, right? It's the mindset. And I think that we have to stop. It's easier and catchier to be like, they're too old, but that's not what we mean. You know what I mean?
But they are old.
They happen to be old. But if we put somebody in the government who was our age and had the same way of thinking, you can't blame it on their age. You blame it on their mindset.
No, I agree. But I would rather deal with a person that is our age that's a Republican than an older person in Congress.
That makes sense.
And that's, I think, what the generalization is.
And it's more
because it's
specific
more
because
easier.
it's not generalizing every old person in the world. It's generalizing all the people who've been in the system.
That's
and I
been
can
like,
see that
yeah.
there is a lot more evidence of this, but still at the same time, it's not just because they're old, it's because of the mindsets that they have. It's the mindsets that they've been growing up with and that they got stuck in by being, they were already a part of the problem and now they're still part of the problem and they've gotten older.
Yeah. And fine, but I also think like just the capabilities of someone's mind in any field, once you're that old, like 70-year-old congressman, like no way.
You don't need to be there anymore.
Retire.
Yeah, I get that.
You know,
I get
like
that.
like, do you know what you're doing at work every day? Like, probably not. You have probably assistants that are doing
do you
that for
watch do you watch did you watch Parks and Recreation?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember the name of that like extremely old councilman who would literally just sit and come
remember.
in. I can't remember, and they had to go in and like give him, and he ended up having a heart attack because he wanted to kill like that. Right. I mean that, and that's me talking about being mad about ageist things, but that was totally a blow for old people. But I get that. I do get that.
Yeah.
I just is the question becomes though, especially when you look at the next generations, the skill set that I, as a person, the skill set that I would criticize, that I despise, that humans have is the manipulation. And if manipulation and the ability to communicate, literally just because it's self-serving, is something that we see happening more in future generations, upcoming generations. And I'm not saying it happens all the time. I know extremely wonderfully like good-hearted teenagers who still, they don't even know, and that's what scares me. They don't even know that they're using manipulative skills to be able to do these things. How do we, if they have these skills and they're becoming more inherently like put into children as they get older because they're seeing it from their adults around them, how, if that's a big part of the problem, how do we manage that?
Just tell you guys the truth. Like there's no like,
but
like it's literally just like whatever soft parenting is, quote unquote, but like those like parents online that you see are just like actually talking to their children like they're adults, not adults, but like humans, as opposed to like children that don't need to know about XYZ. I feel like those kids are gonna be like, oh, okay, this is how the world works, and like I just need to be truthful about shit.
I don't disagree with you. I just don't think there's enough of us to do that.
Oh well, yeah. But like that's just the world that we live in.
Also,
we just need more people to do that.
Been in situations where I've watched and again, I've gotten better at it than I used to be. Me giving truth to someone who doesn't know anything but manipulation usually goes one, especially if it's there like an experienced history in it, usually goes one of two ways. One, doesn't even reach, like doesn't even,
oh yeah, it doesn't reach,
doesn't get there, which the answer to that is like literally CBT, right? Just needs constant exposure to it and be able to adjust. But the other response to it, and the response that makes me nervous when I know how fragile the state of our country is, and B, this emotional states of especially young kids coming up in the world after COVID, what makes me so nervous, and I've seen in abundance, is not knowing how to manage that and just losing their crap.
And like I think I'm not a patient person to begin with. So like when I see that is a response, I just shut down. I'm just like, I'm over it. And then that's like not the right response.
Right. And that's what
but it's also
I'm with
like,
you on that.
But it's also like it's not our duty to do that after, like to respond after they have a meltdown. It's more like everyone just needs to go to therapy.
So like I think that's Maria and I are writing a prescription for the nation, for the children of this nation, and that
I'll give you my therapist. I don't care.
They need to be educated on legitimate communication skills that are not manipulation, and they need to be educated on how to be able to manage the discomfort of dealing with the emotions that don't make them feel comfortable.
Right, and the answer is therapy.
Right. So this comes back to previous arguments we've made in previous episodes where the second that people are born, everyone just needs to be born. Like there are certain cultures where the second you're born, you're like, you get a certain type of pet that oversees you or something. Like everyone needs to be born into this country and assigned a therapist. Like just
like their general physician, like their
yeah, you start with
whatever.
a pediatrician, you should be getting a therapist at that point
get
too.
a pediatric therapist or something.
You know what? When I have children, we're gonna start at square one. Yeah. We're gonna start. I
also think mothers too. Postpartum is real. Like that shit is real. My mother had it with me, actually.
Oh, that sucks. My mom went blind after she had me.
That was wild. Oh my god.
Yeah,
pregnancy scares the shit out of me.
Something that I only really started to learn and understand about within the last couple of years. So my mother had issues with iron before, was anemic before she had me. I don't think I think there was a name for it, but I don't remember. But she literally went blind for the first couple months after I was born.
Was that like mental or the anemic thing too?
I think it had something to do with it. It was a whole bunch of, I think, the trauma in her body of like, well, because my brother was a C-section and I was a C-section. So, I mean, you're asking a lot for your body. I think that her body just was so overwhelmed that it was like, all right, we need one. Her brain was literally like, I need one less thing to focus on right now, and just took her vision away.
Yeah, the brain does that.
Yeah, which is insane. So we should be thankful every day that it does its job. So yeah, for the first couple of months, like she didn't even see me. She didn't know, she couldn't do anything to take care of me.
And that affected a lot. The first couple of months.
It explains all the things now, friends. So, oy vey.
That explains a lot. I don't know what to tell you.
Yep. So yeah, I think my first piece of advice, the thing that woke me up to, it sucks to know. And sometimes, ignorance really is bliss. But if you're somebody who tends to be in situations with people, even loved ones, people around you, where you end up feeling really shitty about yourself, or you feel like, honestly, really just that, you feel shitty about yourself, or you constantly you start out like over here in spot A, and then somehow you ended up at spot B, and you're like, I have no idea how that even got there. These are signs. This is like one of those comedy sets. These are signs that you might be getting manipulated. And I think that the sooner that people can start realizing that it's being utilized as a tool to control them or have a specific result come from them, which is what I had to learn about as I got older and I struggled with a lot. The sooner that we can start to realize what manipulation looks like and what being manipulated feels like, then we can start to realize, and I started to realize, like, I've been programmed not only to experience this and have somebody control my results and the actions that I take, but because I've learned about how you produce results by doing this to somebody else, I've started doing it to other people and raising that awareness so that I stopped doing that and started to be honest and started, in not extremely painful ways, but starting to tell more truth and starting to find more ways to communicate without it. And when we take ownership and responsibility of those two things, that impacts all of the other things that I think we're talking about today. And that's the education and awareness that it's going to take on a large scale of multiple masses of people doing this work for it to reach the levels of what happens with fame and pop culture and politics.
Yeah. You say these long endings. I'm like, yeah, like what else am I going to tell everyone?
That was my final thought.
I mean, I just think it just go to therapy. like a therapist can help you out. We cannot, because we're not licensed, but like from experience, just go to therapy.
Amen.
You'll become calmer as a person and more understanding.
Amen.
Unless your therapist sucks, then go change that.
That's true, because there are a lot of famous people who go to therapy too, but it doesn't seem to do anything. So
yeah, or like, and also I don't know, those like therapists that like specialize in like celebrities. I mean, what are you telling them? Like what are you telling them really?
That if there was a job that I would easily, like, sure, pay me $2,000 for me to sit in a room with you so that you can play. Oh wait, you know what song immediately comes to my head? Lifestyle, The Rich and the Famous.
I love that song. It's so catchy.
If you've not heard that song, go listen to that song. 100% relates to everything we talked about today. Yeah.
Good Charlotte. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, dude. I've got nothing else.
I'm good too on this end. Okay, bye.